Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette.
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the Movie Oubliette. Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the hemisphere-hopping podcast for forgotten fantastical films with me, Conrad, looking forward to Alien Day in Cambridge, UK.
And me, Dan, finally stepping into the modern age with a new computer down here in Melbourne, Australia.
We focus on overlooked sci-fi, horror and fantasy films because we enjoy home invasions, immortal moody teenagers and bell-bottom trousers. Hello, Dan.
Oh, do we? Maybe the last thing. I'm not sure about the other stuff.
Well, me neither, although I've never worn bell-bottom trousers. Have you? Have you been to a costume party?
Well, I've worn, in the 90s, flared jeans was a big craze. So I wore some flared jeans.
God, the amount of jeans material we used to wear in the 90s, honestly.
But so impractical as well, because they were so long that they dragged along the ground. And so you had all these ripped, frayed ends on your trouser legs. And on rainy days, it just sucks all the water up like a sponge. So you've got these soggy, flappy, flared jeans to walk around all day in.
Covered in mud, yeah.
The things to look cool in the 90s.
It'll come back. I'm sure it'll come back. So you have a new modern computer.
Yes. I splashed out and got the Mac Mini, which is such an interesting sort of way of having a computer because it's just the hard drive pretty much and all the brains of the computer. And so I've had to buy all the other bits. So I do have a wireless keyboard now and a wireless mouse. And I had to buy a webcam as well. So I'm now in HD, where previously I was in standard def for like 4 years. So you were looking at me in this kind of pixelated, grainy, grey blob. And now I'm in clear HD.
You are. But none the worse for it. If anything, you look even more handsome. So no worries.
I don't know. You can see all the wrinkle lines, all my grey hairs now. Oh.
There aren't any wrinkles there.
Meanwhile, you've been looking forward to Alien Day.
Yes, which is next week. So by the time this episode comes out, it will be last week. But I was just really excited because my local multiplex is celebrating Alien Day, which is April 26th, by showing the director's cut of Aliens.
Okay.
Which I have never seen projected.
Why is that date Alien Day?
Well, it's a bit silly. So the alien planet, or the planet where they discover the alien eggs in any case, is LV-426. So on April 26th, it's Alien Day, supposedly. It's pretty vague, but if it means I get to see Aliens in its extended form, mastered in 4K and projected on a massive screen, I'm there for it.
I was thinking about this the other day. I don't recall having all these numerical days as a kid.
No.
But suddenly there's so many of them. There's, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. In the synth world, 808 and 909, those corresponding dates are also important days. And now Alien Day. Like, who's coming up with these?
I don't know. I think it's just internet hashtags, I think.
Right.
That's all it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're just constantly celebrating things.
Well, why not? I guess there's something to be happy about. And it means I get to see Aliens on the big screen for the first time in God, decades.
It'll be fun. It will be fun.
It will be. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Conrad, anything in the mailbag today?
Well, yes, and we have a new patron as well. So, hello to Oscar. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you supporting the show.
Oh, hello.
Yes. And we got a lot of reaction to you tweeting out a big stack of movies that you found recently.
Yes.
Is it all exclusively in swap shops that you find these?
Sometimes they're from sales. So I did get a voucher for like a DVD type store. So I took advantage of that and got a whole bunch of DVDs. And yeah, I frequent like flea markets and thrift stores and places that sell secondhand DVDs. I also sometimes buy them off Marketplace as well, Facebook Marketplace. So yeah, just gradually getting them, this could be a potential episode in the future. I mean, it's the stack is massive now. It's huge. It's just we could probably just not buy any more movies and just do the ones that we currently own. But I don't know. I could just keep buying them.
Yeah. I'm still thinking of our retirement when we're just going to be these old doddery guys in chairs watching all of these Blu-rays.
Yeah. On these outdated, players. Everyone else is using holograms or whatever, and still got our Blu-rays and DVDs.
Yeah, streaming it directly into their eyes or something.
Yeah, exactly.
This grandpa with his Blu-ray player. But yes, lots of people were picking out titles from the spines, sort of suggesting which ones we should cover. Dave said Soldier, the Kurt Russell movie, worth watching for Kurt's performance, the action scenes, and the Blade Runner Easter eggs peppered throughout the film, because according to the writer, it's meant to be set in the same fictional universe.
That's really intriguing. I would be keen to check that out.
Yeah, I'd really like to watch that one again. I got it on a special edition Blu-ray from Germany quite recently, so that's in my stack as well.
Right.
Ashley B picked out Needful Things. Stephen King adaptation is a good film, highly recommended.
No one ever talks about that one. And it is one of the few Stephen King adaptations I have read. But I haven't watched it since I was a teenager. So, yeah, another one I would be keen to revisit.
Yeah, me too. And I'm particularly interested this year because they're going to release a new remastered disc of it. I don't know if it's going to be 4K, but it's going to be both versions of it. So the theatrical and a longer TV version as well. So that could be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Artycraft said The Blood on Satan's Claw is great if you like folk horror. It's several stories stitched together, but the atmosphere makes it work.
The period drama sort of setting really intrigues me. And also, older folk horror, way more disturbing. I don't know why.
Yeah, rather than modern folk horror that tries to ape 70s sometimes. Yeah, so lots of intriguing titles picked out of your stack there, which was great. And in terms of comments on Vampire's Kiss, we of course heard from Serge of Cold Crash Pictures.
Hello, Serge.
And he said, I couldn't get into Vampire's Kiss until it dawned on me halfway through that he's not turning into a vampire. It went from a 1-star film to a 4-star film. Once I came down from Cage's performance, I'll have to watch it all the way through, this time with the right impression. I like to think this wasn't just me not paying attention. It takes at least half an hour to figure out what kind of rules the film is playing by. Anyway, this is why I think every movie plot summary should spoil everything up to the end of the first act.
Right.
No, it's fun to see Serge go on that journey. So. Yes. Anybody else want to give us their impressions of Vampire's Kiss? Do let us know.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
So, Dan, what will we be doing this time?
Okay, I'll go find out. I'm on a train today.
Oh, that's a first.
It's a bit noisy. Oh, this door's been locked. I wonder what's in there. Oh, I think I see the film being grasped by a hand. Hang on. Okay, I've got it. Coming back.
Okay.
Nosferatu.
That wasn't that unpleasant.
No, very nice. I like a long train ride.
So today I have with me the 1977 horror drama from George A. Romero. It is Martin.
Ooh. Yeah, one of the lesser seen Romeros.
Yeah.
So what happens in it?
Not a zombie film. It's written and directed by George A. Romero, and it stars, I'm going to pronounce these names wrong, but John Aplas, Lincoln Mazel, Christine Forrest, is it Elle Yane?
Or maybe just Elaine.
Elaine Nadeau, the very talented Tom Savini, Sarah Venable, Francine Middleton, and Roger Kane.
Interesting lineup.
Yes. So in this film, it's set in Pittsburgh, and it follows young Martin, recently moved in with his elderly cousin Kuda, who thinks he is Nosferatu reincarnated. However, Martin refutes his cousin's claims, yet struggles with his identity as a potential vampire, casually drugging, raping, and killing women, whilst also sucking their blood.
Oh.
Just your usual, everyday coming-of-age story. He spends his days working at his cousin's shop, befriends lonely housewife Mrs. Santini, who he begins an affair with, and also makes frequent calls to a late-night radio show revealing his vampiric exploits. It's The Graduate meets A Clockwork Orange meets Maniac. It's George A. Romero's Martin.
Ooh, exciting.
I can't wait to get into this after the break.
Yes. And we're back to talk about Martin, George A. Romero's personal favourite movie.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's his personal favourite. It's not very well seen, however. It hasn't been distributed on DVD and Blu-ray or on streaming services very often. And the reason that we have it is because we were very kindly given a copy of the new 4K remastered edition by the British Blu-ray company Second Sight Films, which was really kind of them. So very grateful for the opportunity to see it and in such fine form. Had you seen it before, Dan?
No, never heard of it. In terms of Romero's oeuvre of films, I have pretty much only seen his zombie films because, I mean, they're the most famous. The only other movie of his I've seen is The Crazies from 1973, and I think he did a segment of Creepshow as well. Or did he write the whole thing? I can't remember.
Didn't he direct the whole first Creepshow movie?
Oh, okay. All the segments?
I think he might have done.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Right. Okay. Well, that's it. So this was quite different to all of that. So it wasn't the sort of schlocky, gory, fun horror, so to speak. This was much more serious in tone.
It is, yes, and possibly more in line with what Romero really wanted to do with his career.
Right.
He says it's his most personal film, which is intriguing as a statement. Yeah, I'm the same as you. So this is a double blind.
Double blind.
It's really bad. My experience or exposure to Romero, much the same as you, is just the zombie movies and Creepshow. I tend to think of him, and this is probably horribly, horribly wrong, as the same as Tobe Hooper, as in he made a groundbreaking, genre-defining independent movie right at the beginning of his career, and then was given studio assignments later, but none of them are really all that memorable. Maybe that's a bit cruel and reductive, but that just kind of feels like what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the zombie films are so iconic and paved the way, single-handedly paved the way for the genre. And up until a point, I love most of them. Up until about Land of the Dead, I think was the last best one. After that, it's rehashing.
Right. Okay.
And Land of the Dead kind of rehashing it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But all the ones before, really, really fascinating. I love Day of the Dead. I think that movie's highly underrated.
Yeah.
But it is unfortunate that that's what he's known for, and he kept kind of having to go back to the same thing over and over again, the zombie thing again and again and again. And in between, he did these really interesting films that none of them I've seen. They all sound really fascinating. And yeah, this is one of them. I was quite surprised. This movie comes across as very art housey, which I did not expect from Romero.
Me neither. But again, I've not seen anything he did in between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, which put him back on the map, and that's a fantastic movie. So there's always Vanilla, Season of the Witch, and The Crazies, which you have seen.
I have seen.
None of which were particularly successful. And then you get Martin. It does feel similar to Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead in the sense that it has a strong sense that it's engaging with many, many themes at the same time.
Yeah.
Putting an old genre in a new setting and seeing how that plays out. And you've also got this, I mean, the town of Braddock in Pittsburgh. It's a cliche to say it's another character in the film, but the setting, run down Rust Belt immigrant ghetto that's definitely seen better times, contrasted with the suburbs that Martin is raiding for his nocturnal activities. So he's sort of vampirically preying upon the suburbs from the immigrant ghetto, and the corporations have sort of destroyed this town through greed as well. So he seems to have this sort of social commentary bubbling along in the background, which always happened in the best of his movies. But this time with more of a focus on a character study than I think I've seen in his previous films.
Yeah, this is mainly a drama. Mainly it's sort of a coming-of-age story of this. Is he a teenager or is he early 20s? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, one of the two.
Dealing with his adolescence and like going through puberty and, you know, wanting to have sex with women, but also not dealing with... So there is a father figure of his elderly cousin. I don't know how that works, but he's like 60 and above, it seems, but it's his cousin, and his cousin's granddaughter, she's still older than Martin.
Yeah.
And so those two characters are kind of the father and mother figure to Martin. For some reason, Cuda, the cousin, thinks he's a vampire.
Yeah.
He thinks he's Nosferatu. I don't know why. I have no idea why. And
it's supposed to be the family curse, isn't it? There's this whole, because their family roots are Eastern European, and they just seem to have brought this whole family curse with them, which Christina, the granddaughter, is always questioning, rubbishing, and her concern is that this ridiculous belief has scarred Martin, who is kind of played as almost like he's developmentally challenged.
Yeah.
He's very innocent anyway.
Yeah.
Very innocent.
I mean, his character is very... I did quite relate to it because I was a very shy boy growing up. I didn't talk very much, and people thought I was strange because of it, you know, not being social, not having confidence to talk. So that did relate to me, and being treated as an outcast, not having that many friends, like that was quite relatable. It was interesting though because his cousin Cuda kept calling him a vampire. He had like bundles of garlic on doors and crosses everywhere. At the same time, he was killing women and sucking their blood.
Yes.
So,
and raping them, I think.
Yeah. If he didn't want to be called a vampire, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's quite odd.
Well, he believes he is as well, though, doesn't he? Martin believes that he is a vampire too.
I think he's at odds with that because he's constantly trying to prove to Cuda that he's not a vampire. Magic doesn't exist. This is not a thing. But at the same time, he's calling this radio show and revealing everything to this talk show host on this late night radio show about how he's, you know, a vampire. He can't stop his urges, preying on women and having sex with unconscious women. raping them, terrible. So, I mean, that is very much about growing up as an adolescent. You're kind of torn between opposing forces often.
Yeah, so at the same time as being an adolescent who is sort of hesitant about sex and unsure about his own body, like he talks about being too shy to have sex with somebody who's awake. So his modus operandi is to inject his victims so that they fall asleep, and then he strips them naked, presumably has sex with them, they don't show it, and drinks their blood, and then stages them to look like a suicide.
Yeah.
I wonder whether he just rationalizes it to himself because he's told that he is a vampire because of this family curse, and he's been passed from one family member to another who has this responsibility to look after him because he'll never age or whatever.
Yes.
And he's completely bought in on that. He says that he's 84 years old. He says he's a vampire, but he says that all of the magic isn't real. He's sort of a modern day vampire.
Yeah.
I think he does believe that he is one.
Right.
But I think he's just rationalizing he's a serial killer. So he's rationalizing it.
Yeah. And kind of justifying it as being, I guess, a metaphor for like puberty or like, growing up, maturing into adulthood.
Yeah.
Like that sort of drama aspect of it was quite complex and it was quite fleshed out. It did remind me more of drama films like your favorite movie, Ordinary People, and also his affair with Mrs. Santini, very similar to The Graduate, sort of coming to terms with sexuality and becoming a man, essentially.
Yeah, which also causes him to stop victimizing women. He suddenly finds that he can't pick a victim and he ends up attacking a homeless man instead.
Yes.
To satisfy his bloodlust. He actually says on the dialogue, he's or to the late night host, maybe it's because I'm doing the sexy stuff now, as he calls it.
Yes.
It reminded me a lot, oddly enough, of the Netflix show Dharma. I don't know if you watched that.
I haven't seen that yet, no.
Which again, and I don't know how accurate this is, it depicts Dharma as someone who found it very difficult to have a physical relationship with a live person. So you see him taking mannequins home from the store that he works at so that he can have a sexual relationship with a mannequin.
Right.
And then he graduates to people. And you get to the point in the Dharma show where he actually has a physical relationship with a man and they're a really good fit for each other. And you're kind of hoping that this will sort him out, even though you really shouldn't be wanting this guy to get away with what he's done. But for some reason, you're still rooting for him. You're sort of like, oh, I really hope this relationship works out so he stops killing people. And then it all goes horribly wrong again.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of a fascinating psychological examination of a serial killer as well. And with a very sympathetic lead character, because John Amplas is so good in the lead role.
Yeah.
But you really shouldn't be all that sympathetic towards Martin, should you really?
I didn't feel any sympathy towards him, to be honest.
You didn't?
I didn't think he was likable. Purely from the killings. They were horrible.
Yes.
And especially in that sort of home invasion one, he seems to get actual glee from terrorizing these people. He's running around, he's like playing with the phone, he's locking doors, and it's like a cat and mouse game for him. And so it's not like he's trying to hold back his urges. Like he's actually having fun with this. And that's not, I don't know, it's unnerving. Like I found his character very unnerving and not very likable.
Right. See, I've always had a thing for serial killers. It's not good. Characters like Tom Ripley. And Tom Ripley is a sociopathic killer, but for some reason I find him quite sympathetic, which probably says a lot more about me.
Yeah, I do like Tom Ripley and Talented Mr. Ripley. I thought that Matt Damon character was really interesting in the fact that he just wanted to be liked. And he was trying to be a good person.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know whether Martin is trying to be a good person.
That's
I don't
true.
know. I feel like he's a selfish character. I think he's always doing things for himself. And when things don't go his way, he blames other people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a complex character. It is. It's not black and white whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's not. And in a way, I've been lured in the same way that all the bored housewives are, because they see him, he's youthful, he's quiet. They mistake him for something that he's not. So the housewife that he has a relationship with says, "Oh, you're so relaxing to be around because you don't have any opinions."
Yeah.
But he has loads of opinions.
He does.
And they're not flattering.
No.
He doesn't think well of the people that he's preying upon
No,
at
he doesn't.
all.
He doesn't. No.
Yeah, he is a complex character, and perhaps I'm being lured in
Yeah.
by his apparent youth and innocence when, he's not youthful and innocent, really.
And also, he's not preying on like criminals. You know, often with movies where you're following a protagonist that is killing people, is a murderer. Maniac is one that I think of.
Yeah.
But they're kind of preying on evil characters. So it's kind of justified. Whereas Martin's not preying on evil people. These are nice women.
Desperate people, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually.
And only at the end with the homeless man is sort of a destitute person.
Yeah.
And so, I can't sympathize with that. I really can't.
No.
But it does remind me of other movies where you're following the protagonist as the main character, but they're a serial killer. So Maniac, A Clockwork Orange is similar. I don't think he killed. Does he? He does kill someone in that movie.
He's certainly in a gang that kills people. I haven't
Yes.
seen it for a long time.
Yeah, but then you've got other movies like The House that Jack Built and American Psycho and Driller Killer. I've watched recently, which was a interesting movie. I can see why it's talked about. It's not a nice movie to watch.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about the murder aspect of this movie, Martin, I don't know what it is with 70s depictions of murder. It's horrible
Yes.
to witness.
What makes this particularly gruesome is just how mundane and awkward and long-winded and difficult it is.
Yeah.
It reminded me very much of a Krzysztof Kieslowski film that I really like, a short film about killing.
Right.
Which doesn't glamorize murder. It isn't sort of the flashy, exciting, cathartic, action-packed sort of thing, or exploitative in a way that's sort of designed for the audience to get off on in some way.
Yeah.
From the very first scene where he's preying upon that woman on the train, one of the things I really love is the comparison between the black and white fantasy that I think Martin is having. You know, he opens a door and it cuts to black and white.
Yes.
And there's this beautiful woman with her hair blowing in the wind, sort of beckoning him, accompanied by an operatic voice on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, she's in this ugly green nightdress with like cream on her face and her hair pinned up, and she's emerging from the toilet blowing her nose.
Yeah.
And what happens just seems to take forever, and it's a sort of awkward and difficult. You know, it stops and starts, and she's asking him what he's doing, and it's not pleasant to watch at all.
No. And it's quite clumsy as well. Like,
Yes.
all of his kills are not, they don't go the way he plans them. They're always a little bit, oh, this is not working.
Yeah.
Like in the second one where it's like the house invasion and he thinks she's alone at home, but she's got a guy around that she's having an affair with. So
Yeah.
he turns up and it's just, the struggles are, it's almost like they're not choreographed at all. It's very clunky and people fall over in the wrong places. And also how he kills the people I guess it's central. There is a lot of almost like fetishizing like the needle as well. There's lots of close-ups of the needle and I don't know. It is really unsettling to watch.
Yeah, and brutal.
Yes.
There's something about the gritty reality of it that makes it really uncomfortable and unpleasant to watch.
Yes.
I find this more horrifying than Romero's zombie movies.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it is verging on, I mean, it is exploitation, really. It's not as flashy and like sexualized as like Giallo films where you've got, you know, the close-up of the blade and then boobs and then it's not like that, but it kind of is. Like, I don't think any woman would enjoy watching this movie.
No.
It's not nice to women.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. did mention the black and white flashes. Like, so they're idealized fantasies of what's happening, I guess. Because some of them almost felt like flashbacks.
Yes.
Am I wrong there?
No, it seems to serve two functions. I mean, that particular instance where he opens the carriage and the train and he imagines the woman in a very different way than she actually is very different from all of the other ones, because all of the other ones seem to be flashbacks to a previous experience of Martin's, because he has shorter hair and it seems to be a different time period, like the old country where he's come from, because particularly there's a sequence where Cuda has arranged for him to be exorcised by a priest and they go through the rite of exorcism, and that is juxtaposed with the same thing happening to him. So you've got one ritual happening in English and one happening in Latin in two different time periods, and they're both playing at once on the soundtrack, and it was a really interesting montage, and in both cases he just runs away at the end of it. It doesn't seem to have any effect at all. So yeah, it seems to be on the one hand a flashback and on the other hand a fantasy of his. It sort of undermines the credibility of the flashbacks, because has he really lived 84 years and still looked the same or not? Romero's been very clear. In the script, it says, when it introduces the character, it says Martin is either an 84-year-old vampire or an 18-year-old serial killer.
Right.
Psychotic, yeah. The script sort of has its cake and eats it. It doesn't make that clear.
Right.
But Romero says he always thinks that none of the magic is real and Martin is just sick.
Yeah. I mean, I got that.
Yeah.
Very similar sort of premise to Vampire's Kiss.
Yes.
Where Nick Cage's character really thinks he's turning into a vampire, but he definitely isn't.
No.
Definitely not.
And both have scenes in which they prance about in fake teeth.
Yes. And they both end
funny.
virtually the same as well, which
Yeah.
is kind of, I was
That's a
quite
good point.
surprised with it. I mean, spoilers here, Martian does get staked by his cousin Cuda.
Yeah.
Which I was very shocked by, to be honest.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, because it kind of resolved itself. Like Martin stopped killing, and he was coming to terms with his adulthood, and then he wakes up and gets staked.
Yeah.
Wow.
For a murder he didn't commit.
What the? Wow.
Because the housewife that he has a relationship with kills herself in the bath, and he gets staked for that. So he gets killed for a murder he didn't commit.
Yeah, it's shocking.
The whole thing is just laced with Romero's trademark irony.
Yeah.
And it's delicious. It's like the most murder that happens, the most death that happens in the film is actually a police shootout in the third act.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Comes from nowhere. Yeah, Martin's being pursued by the police for breaking into a department store to get a change of clothes after killing somebody. And the police chase him, and he leads them accidentally to some sort of drug deal going down or something.
Yeah. Some sort of
Loads
gang
of people
leader.
get shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like they thought, oh, the movie's getting a bit dull. Let's just put in some random gunfight in the middle of nowhere. Everyone dies and he runs away.
But I think it's the irony. It's just this terrible situation that they're all in. This town is dying. The church has burned down and they're trying to raise the money to rebuild it. Every character, like Tom Savini's character, Arthur, they're all talking about leaving. Christina's talking about leaving, and Arthur is just her way out. She's not actually going to have a relationship with him. He's just her way out of the town. They're all trying to get away to something better because of just how run down and decrepit this town is. And for the police to just mow down all of these people, and for that to be the highest body count in the movie while Martin's scampering around the edges of it. I don't know. It feels very pointed to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of social commentary. And like we've touched on some of the themes, but there are a lot of themes in this movie. I felt like there were themes in terms of, female figures and male figures to Martin. So you've got the sort of the masculine bikies that seem to be frequenting the neighborhood that kind of mock him.
Yeah.
Like, I guess they're the symbol of, pure masculinity, and he doesn't relate to that, and he more sort of gravitates to the female figures like Christina and Mrs. Santini. But then there's also this idea of control as well. So he's obviously being controlled by Cuda, but then he's trying to impart control on these victims as well, drugging them and having his way with them. So, yeah, there's a lot of thematic material throughout the movie.
Yeah.
About many different things.
It's very dense, for sure. It's very rich texturally as well, just in terms of, because all of its location shooting, it's low budget, it's filming in actual buildings and actual people's homes and so on. So there's nothing in terms of deliberate design. It's just capturing a real social milieu at a particular time and space, which kind of, this many years away from it, is fascinating to watch and makes it possibly more interesting now than it was at the time it was released, maybe.
I would like to posit a question. Did you find it slow going?
First watch, yes, because I didn't know what to expect, and I was probably expecting
more killing
from a Romero movie. I was expecting more to be happening.
Yeah.
So yes, first time watching it, second time watching it, I just found it kind of, I don't know, spellbinding, and actually just found the ending really abrupt. Like, oh, so he's in a parade.
Yeah.
And now he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do agree that was a bit abrupt. I found it quite slow. I guess I had an expectation because of Romero.
Yeah.
But it is very much an art house movie. It is very much a drama first, horror second.
Yeah.
There are only really 3 killing scenes, really.
Yeah.
Most of it is drama. Most of it is character-driven, character arcs. I have to be honest, I found it a little dull to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was the expectation, but I wanted more to happen. Or maybe it was also the fact that I didn't find any of the characters likable at all. Like, I felt like everyone was kind of trying to get the most out of the situation for their own sort of gain, and especially Martin.
Yeah.
And so I found it really hard to connect with anyone.
I guess it's because I have this thing for serial killers that I settled into that groove because I enjoy those types of movies.
Yeah.
And also just because it was such a stylistically different film, the whole texture of it, the image, the soundtrack, which we should talk about.
Yes.
I just found it fascinating from that aspect. It's very different from other films we've done recently.
Yeah. I find it contradictory in terms of my view on films, because normally I'm complaining there's not enough depth.
Yes.
Not enough characters. There's not enough, meat in terms of story and characters. But for this movie, I felt like there wasn't enough of the other stuff.
Right.
There wasn't enough plot, I guess, or other things happening. It was just very, very, very character driven. I don't know. I feel like a hypocrite. Like, these are all the things that I want in other movies, but for some reason, I don't enjoy it in this movie.
Yeah, what do we want, Dan?
I don't know.
You're never satisfied.
Yeah.
No, I think you have to get the balance right, don't you? So if this didn't work because it didn't have hooks that thematically or it fascinated you or styles that fascinated you, then yeah, it is going to play as sort of a long, odd movie. And if you go into it with a certain expectation of Romero, I think you'll be surprised because it's quite different.
It's very different
from the films he's most famous for. Let's say that because obviously I haven't seen enough of his films to. Yeah, but I'm interested to now. For sure.
I'm interested to watch more of his films because this movie is very, very different. I have watched The Crazies, and that is more in line with his zombie movies. Technically not zombies in that movie. It's like a viral infection or some disease that causes people to act violently, not turn into zombies, just be violent.
Right.
But that movie, production-wise, is not great. Like, there are sound issues, there are props that don't look real or look very flimsily constructed. Yeah, it's obviously a very low-budget movie. It was not executed very well.
I haven't seen it. I've only seen the remake, which I really liked.
I really like the remake as well. I think it's one of the few remakes that's better than the original. Yeah, this movie does have a lot of heart. It does a lot of passion. There's obviously a lot of passion and time and careful scripting, character development in this movie.
Yeah, it's a sincere movie, for sure.
It really is. It really is. It's hard to categorize, though, because if you take all the murder out, it's actually quite an interesting coming-of-age drama.
Yeah.
But if you talk about just the murder, there's not much murder in this movie.
No.
So it would be hard to recommend this, I think.
It's a tricky one, yeah, because it doesn't sit quite happily in one camp or the other.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, if you're expecting a coming-of-age movie like American Beauty,
right,
it's not the movie you would watch at all because of all the incredibly gritty murder that will shock general audiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a hard one to categorize, I think.
It is.
Now it's time for Random Trivia.
So, Dan, what stunning piece of trivia did you overhear on a talk-in radio show today?
So, the woman who plays the housewife victim, so that's during that home invasion scene, Sarah Venable, she has only been in 2 other films. So one is the 1974 film called 2, and the second film is Romero's zombie classic, Dawn of the Dead. She was uncredited as Leotard Zombie Hit by Sledge.
Alarmingly specific credit.
Yes. So yeah, that's her entire filmography, just the 3 movies.
Okay. Yeah, I know that Christine Forrest, who plays Christina in the movie, that's George A. Romero's wife, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So it was his second wife. They met on the set of Season of the Witch in 1973 and married in 1981. But yeah, she pops up in a lot of his movies, and I was looking through her filmography. It's like, how he must really like her. Oh, he was married to her. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our trivia.
Yes.
You must have some intriguing things to say about the score.
Score was so weird for me.
Yeah.
So strange. Really odd choices and odd cues and weird moments as well.
Yeah.
So from what I could pick out, it's very small chamber group of instruments, mainly woodwind for some reason. A lot of clarinet and flute and I don't know. And also like, is it synth?
Yes.
Or some sort of very resonant keyboard instrument with heaps of like 70s tape echo or something on it.
Yeah.
So almost prog rocky at times.
Yeah.
Like it felt like I was listening to, I don't know, I can't think of a prog rock band. But yeah, that real 70s psychedelic sound at times. But then other times almost like experimental jazz with the woodwinds doing these weird almost atonal motifs. I don't know. I'm not even sure what I think about the music. What did you think?
I loved it. It took me a while to get used to.
Yeah,
there's a soprano in there as well. So it's by Donald Rubinstein, who is the younger brother of the film's producer,
right?
Richard Rubinstein. He was 24 at the time he did it. He's an avant-garde jazz musician.
I see. The jazz.
Yes, there you go. He's like a fully fledged musician who doesn't just work in film, if you see what I mean. So he was trying to create complete musical pieces as well as support the film. And he really enjoyed working with George because George was such a great music editor and would experiment in ways. So would do things like, as the cut of the film changed and the music was too short for the scene now, he would roll the cue slowed down instead, and then it would become really strange.
Right.
And Donald really liked that sort of weird experimentation with it. When it was released, much like Dawn of the Dead, Dario Argento edited a European version of the film called Vampire, but spelt Wampyr. And that was scored by Goblin, like Dawn of the Dead.
Interesting. That would be a very different movie.
It would. So much of the character of the movie is Donald Rubinstein's very strange score.
Yeah.
But it seems, I don't know, it feels right to me. And it became quite a collector's item. Mojo magazine called it, quote, one of the 100 coolest soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's not something that I've ever heard before. It wasn't trying to replicate something else.
No.
I don't think some of the cues worked, though.
Right.
I don't know. There's a cue where he walks into the bathroom and finds Mrs. Santini. She'd committed suicide in the bath. There's blood everywhere. And it's just this little quirky, like, woodwind number that's just totally wrong. I don't know why that's playing in that scene. It's completely wrong. It's tonally wrong. And the chase scene and the shootout with the police, there's like woodwind playing. Like, what is this? Why am I hearing flute in a police chase scene? I don't know. I'm not sure whether some of the cues worked.
Okay. Well, that reminded me of Lalo Schifrin's work for the Dirty Harry movies. It feels very 70s to me, for sure.
Yeah. Similarly, with the sound design choices were quite interesting. So the first murder scene on the train at the start, which did remind me very much of Terror Train. I don't know whether you've seen that with Jamie Lee Curtis.
No.
It's actually quite a good slasher movie. See it on a train. It's got David Copperfield in it for some reason. He does some magic.
What?
Yeah.
We should do that movie.
It's quite an interesting movie. Anyway, the setting very similar for the opening scene in this movie, and the scene where the murder and the rape is happening. There's no sound of the things happening apart from the struggle. It's just the sound of the train, and I thought that was a really interesting and a very unsettling choice sonically.
Yeah, it's stylistically quite a fascinating little hodgepodge.
Yes.
Coming to you live from the Movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
Okay, it's the Mobley Awards. It's where we present our favourite candle cross vampire repelling parts of the film in a garland of gala-confused categories.
Best quote.
My favourite quote in the movie comes from Martin. He has many sage words to say about people who he regards as lesser than him. But one of the things he says, people are always going away so they can forget where they were.
Very profound.
Yeah, I like that one. I just thought it was very good because in the film, everybody is trying to get out of this town.
Yeah. So, my favorite quote is a little bit less profound. It's when Cuda is talking to Martin and he says, "I've been told you are an imbecile. Can you speak? Speak so I can hear your voice. Speak, Nosferatu."
Best hair or costume?
Well, I mean, the obvious pick would be Cuda in his all-white suit. Like, everything is white. Like, white pants, white jacket, white shirt, white tie, white shoes. He is completely white. Metaphor, I guess? Symbolism? Purity? I don't know.
He is, yeah. He's a man of the church and stands to his principles. And
yeah, right.
And looks like Colonel Sanders, but there you go.
Yeah, he does.
For me, for hair or costume, I just love the drug dealer who's shot by the police in the third act, played by Clayton McKinnon, who's also in Dawn of the Dead, as it turns out.
Yes.
And he's sporting this amazing powder blue satin suit with matching newsboy hat, with the little button on the top and the pleats going up. Yeah. And this black and crimson flowery shirt with an enormous collar. He's just, when he goes out on his drug deals, he looks great. He's really dressed to impress. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, they look good in the 70s.
They did.
Yeah.
Most 70s moment.
My pick for the most 70s thing in the movie is the radio call-in show.
Yes.
It just Feels like very prevalent in that period, certainly in movies. I'm thinking of, I can think of a lot of sort of serial killers phoning DJs.
Yeah, that's right. They always did that.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
I mean, once it got to the 90s and Frasier, then they were just calling in to solve their sort of psychological problems. But
Yeah.
a lot of serial killers calling DJs in there.
Yeah. 70s for me was the dinnerware. Holy crap. So 70s. Like casserole dishes, like glass casserole dishes served on the table as well.
Yes.
Like chicken cooked in casserole dishes and served on the table. And they look hideous. Also, the wine glasses that had the sort of white floral patterns around the edges. Very 70s as well.
Favorite scene?
I quite like the house invasion scene. It was so unique. I haven't really seen something like that before. The fact that he creeps into this house, he finds some universal garage door remote to open the garage door and sneaks in and expects to find just the woman by herself, but instead she's got a man over. And so everything goes horribly wrong, but it's all very clumsy and people running everywhere and locking doors and kind of trying to make phone calls, but she's forgetting the phone number for some reason, and then Martin's got the other line, so she can't actually ring through because there's a dial tone, and he's kind of like pushing random numbers as the whole thing. It's so bizarre to me because it's unsettling. At the same time being incredibly comedic as well. So I don't know. I found it very, very interesting to watch the whole scene.
It's a fascinating scene. Yeah, I think the most chilling moment in it, and I've read other people say the same thing, is when Martin bursts into the room and the first thing that the guy who's in there says is, "Hey, let's not get excited. It's not what it looks like," kind of thing. So he's obviously thinking this is like a friend or the husband, maybe.
No, it can't be the husband. He's like 18.
He's too young.
Yeah.
But he thinks that this is a different situation, and the housewife says, "I don't know him."
Yeah.
Which just completely changes. Like, oh shit,
I know.
This is a different situation than I thought it was.
Yeah. Favorite scene for you?
Mine is the train scene right at the beginning, actually.
Right, yeah.
Because it's kind of Hitchcockian.
It is.
Almost.
Yeah.
But more realistic and sort of grungy and uncomfortable, as we've talked about, in a way that makes it really unsettling and in a way that reminded me of, as I said, Krzysztof Kieslowski's A Short Film About Killing, which focuses on just how difficult and slow and unsensational, how difficult it is to take somebody's life away.
Yeah.
Whereas Hitchcock tended to sort of glamorize it, this is more sort of gritty and
yes,
realistic and awful. So, yeah, I found that fascinating. The fact that when he's doing the cleanup afterwards, the credits start coming back on again, and you just suddenly realize you're 8 minutes in and the credits are still running. I don't know. I found it fascinating, that whole sequence, and a great mood setter.
Most cliche moment.
I'm going to go for suicide in a bathtub.
Yeah.
It seems to be quite a popular location. We've seen it ourselves in a couple of movies, or variations on it. So in the Andromeda Strain, we had somebody who killed themselves in a bathtub just by sort of bending over the bath and sticking their head in the water.
Right, yes.
Which one of the characters says, "I didn't even know you could kill yourself that way." So, there's that. It happens in the 90s TV version of It, and also in Leviathan, which we've covered, although in that case it's a shower. But
Right. Yeah. Cliches for me in this movie are all more, I guess, drama cliches. So, an outcast gets it on with an older woman. That happens quite a bit. Sort of household dynamic of like a really malevolent father figure and then a caring, kind mother figure. And then also like all loners are murderers, it seems, you know. You don't have any friends, so you just start murdering people. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
It's the quiet ones you got to watch out for, Dan.
Yeah, I guess so.
Best special effect.
The steak scene at the end when Martin gets staked by Cuda, just horrific. and very, very realistic looking, and the accompanying sound effect of hitting the steak with the hammer, just traumatic to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole scene is just incredibly shocking for me. Like much more shocking than the scene in Vampire's Kiss. Very similar,
yes,
but much more shocking.
Yes, and I think Lars would be more impressed with the effects, because I don't think he was impressed with the effects.
No, he wasn't. No,
in that movie.
Yeah.
Tom Savini doesn't like that effect, oddly enough, because he said there's a continuity error between how far the guy Cuda hits the stake in, and then you cut to the sort of shot of Martin with the stake in him, and it's sticking out further than it was. Like,
right.
He pushes it in too far, apparently. So he doesn't like it.
Okay.
It bugs him.
Yeah.
Bugs him.
Okay.
One effect that Tom Savini is very proud of, and the one that I found the most shocking, was the branch being jabbed into that guy's neck.
Awful. Yeah.
Because I was not expecting that at all.
No.
It came out of nowhere.
No. Yeah. And also just knowing that branch is not very sharp as well. So that would be excruciating.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's not nice at all. And that's the same. So Savini had to figure out how to do that, and he used the same technique that he would go on to use in Friday the 13th on Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Favorite sound effect.
The sound detail, I think, that I appreciated the most in this movie is when Martin is calling the radio show, he has the radio on in his room, and you can hear
the delay.
3-second delay, and it's quite useful because I thought surely the DJ should be saying to him, turn your bloody radio off, because they always used to do that, so you didn't get the feedback. But it's useful because it communicates that when there's an ad playing on the radio, that the DJ is talking to him off air.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Which is a useful device. So it actually serves a purpose. So I really liked that detail. So it's more of a sound design detail than anything.
Yeah.
No,
I like that as well. Sound for me, one I wanted to point out was the garage door opening. I think it was location sound, and I think they only had one microphone, and it's just reverberating like hell in this like tiny garage, and it sounds so clamorous and like noisy, and almost like metallic. It's like phasing, but really loud sound that they probably should have replaced in post, but it sounds great. Or like
it does sound great.
Kind of
and
ugly,
unlike anything you'd get in a library.
Kind of really ugly. But in all the best ways.
Most funniest moment.
Well, I can go quickly because you've already mentioned it. It's the home invasion scene, which I found oddly hilarious, although uncomfortably so.
Yeah.
But specifically the bit where she's trying to phone the police and Martin's on the other extension just pressing random buttons. You just hear beep, boop, 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 and she's shouting, get off the other line.
Yeah.
But
what I don't
ridiculous.
understand is the buttons he's pushing. It doesn't sound like a telephone. It sounds like some sort of sci-fi computer.
Yeah, it does. That's a bad effect.
I don't know what.
I mean,
why didn't they just record an actual telephone? They had them right there. Like, just record the dials on the telephone. I don't get it.
I don't know. It's stupid. Yeah, it should be the dial tone.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, but
not this weird like sci-fi. Boop, 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 boop. But it did add to the comedy though, because it was so ridiculous.
I know. I found it hilarious, but also disturbing, but hilarious as well.
Yeah. All right, that's our move, please.
Hi, I'm Bernard Rose, the director of Paper House, and you're listening to Movie Oubliette.
Hey, it's final verdict time. Should George A. Romero's Martin be set free from the oubliette to exploit audiences worldwide and be worshipped by all, or should it be chased by a black and white Nosferatu reference mob of angry villagers back into the darkness of the oubliette, never to be seen again? Conrad, this is a double blind for both of us. What's your final verdict for Martin?
Well, this was a real discovery for me because I had very limited exposure to Romero, which is bad, I know, and only his zombie movies, really. And this is a much more thoughtful and thought-provoking film. It still has his social commentary. There's a lot in there about the Pittsburgh, about the location, and about the poverty and the problems that they were facing. And also, as a central character, Martin is fascinating. And I found him compelling because I have a soft spot for deviant serial killers, which is probably a very odd thing to have a soft spot for, but I do. And I found the psychology of Martin and John Amplaz's central performance fascinating. And seeing it remastered in 4K by Second Sight Films when it's been very difficult to come by for a very long time was a real delight. And just the texture of it, the bizarre way it was shot, the different style of film stock that they used. I found it a real eye-opener and fascinating. And I think people who maybe haven't seen many more of Romero's films should definitely check it out. I think you're right in saying it's not for everybody. I think women will find it a very uncomfortable watch. His crimes are brutal and unpleasant and disturbing in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's not for everybody, but certainly if you're interested in Romero, if you're interested in a serious look at a vampire in a modern day setting, well, the 70s, but a modern setting, then I would say yes. And I think seeing as it's only just been unearthed and rejuvenated recently, I think it would be a shame to toss it back in. So I would let it go.
All of that sounds very good on paper. I think theoretically this movie is very deep, it's very complex, lots of characters, a character arc, social commentary, just it's packed with thematic material. But for me, I thought it was very dull and very unlikable characters, very slow going, and I don't know. I found the structure a bit strange. On one hand, it's a horror, it's exploitation. On the other hand, it's slow-moving, coming-of-age drama about a boy dealing with his sexuality and but also vampires. I don't know. I don't think I think this is more of a personal preference. It just wasn't for me. I found it a bit boring and maybe not enough likable characters, odd music choices. And yeah, end of the day, I don't think I would recommend this movie. I think it's obviously a passion project and one dear to Romero. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe too self-indulgent for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that means that our patrons will have the deciding vote. So, Hal?
Yes, Conrad?
Yes, I'd like the final vote, please.
I'm receiving a signal from the monolith.
No, I'm not interested in the monolith. Just final vote, please.
In their infinite wisdom, our patrons voted to set the film free.
Oh, right. So they agree with you.
They do, yes. So Eddie Coulter says, one of my favorite George Romero films with a unique story about the vampire. And Chazilla said, I've enjoyed Martin since the VHS rental days. The way Romero filmed it makes me feel like I'm in the story with the characters, low angles, intimate close-ups and location shots. Martin is 1970s independent filmmaking at its finest. Let it ride the train out of the oubliette in search of new fans.
Okay. Well, I guess I seem to be in the minority here. So yes, let's set it free.
Yes. Fly, Martin, fly.
Arthur's just my way out.
It was very unique and very different for Romero. So if you want to see something a bit different, yeah, check it out.
Yeah, and an interesting contrast to Vampire's Kiss. Similar thematic material here and there, some similar moments, but yeah, very different film.
Very, very different. Way less funny.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, not much of Martin is going to be turned into a meme.
I don't think any.
No.
So I guess, Conrad, let's reveal what we will be discussing next episode.
Well, we're shifting decades and genres. We're heading into 1995 for the American science fiction fantasy drama film Powder.
Oh, okay. Yes. I saw this ages ago. I don't really remember it.
No, me neither. The only thing that's really familiar to me is the score because, surprise, surprise, it's Jerry Goldsmith.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So I know the score really well, but I've only seen the movie once. All I remember is the Sean Patrick Flannery, the kid that was in the young Indiana Jones, is a bald albino. And he's magical. That's about all I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all I can picture is his shirt off and him being very white.
Yes.
Or is that just a poster? I can't remember.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, I do remember there's a scene where he's stripped naked by bullies.
Yeah. Right.
Let's see if that's just the Mandela effect or if that actually happened.
Yeah. Keen to check it out.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Yes, and if you want to keep up to date with all of our episodes when Powder comes out, you can follow us on all our socials. We are Movie Oubliette everywhere, and our email address is movie.oubliette@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you'd like to support the show, head on over to Patreon, where for as little as $1, you can nominate films for future episodes and download extended portions of the show. For $5, you can vote on the final verdict, like our patrons did today.
Yes.
In fact, affecting the final outcome.
Yeah.
And get access to our exclusive monthly minisodes, where we talk about all sorts of things, like new films even. And for $10, you can be an executive producer and get behind-the-scenes info, like our current executive producers, Chazilla, Eddie Coulter, Isaac Sutton, and new this month, Dr. Doggy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have merchandise available at Redbubble and also a YouTube channel as well, where we have some video essays about many different things.
Yes, and some panels from Iconicon, if you want to see.
Oh, yes, of course.
Interviewing people from that. Yeah.
Thanks again, listeners, for joining us on another episode. A double vampire episode, I guess.
Yes. No vampires next time.
Yes. Stay tuned for our Powder episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Vampire. First, I will save your soul. Then, I will destroy you. I will show you your room.